By default, PowerPoint will select which screen it wants to use for your slideshow and which it uses for presenter view. But you can make that decision for yourself. On the slideshow ribbon, in the monitors section, two things you want to do. First of all, make sure use presenter view is checked. That allows you to make sure that you're using presenter view in PowerPoint. And the second is use the monitor drop-down list. This allows you to select the monitor you want. By default, it will say automatic, but you can select which specific monitor you want the slideshow to be on. So again, the monitor selection is for the slideshow. The presenter view will then show up on whichever monitor is considered your primary monitor. When you're selecting which screen you want to show the slideshow on, be aware that the resolution of the screen may impact the experience your audience has. A higher resolution screen will take longer for the meeting platform to take from your computer and display to your attendees. So for example, if you have a typical what's known as a full HD screen, the resolution is 1920 by 1080, and you compare that to a, again, popular 2K screen. Many people use these screens these days to work on. Its resolution is 2560 by 1440. Well, it doesn't seem like it's that much bigger. In fact, there are 77.8% more pixels that the meeting platform has to send from your computer every time you do a build or you go to a new slide. That's going to take time. The more pixels it has to send to the attendees, the longer they're going to have to wait to see whatever new came up on your screen. So when you're selecting your screen to use, select a lower resolution. You may even want to consider selecting a regular HD screen, which would be 1280 by 720. Many older screens or older TVs actually have this resolution, and it has 55.6% fewer pixels than the full HD. Again, this is going to make it faster for your attendees to see every build or new slide that you display. So be careful in selecting the screen that you're going to use, and select a lower resolution screen than the high-res screen that you might use when working on your slides. When you're using PowerPoint's presenter view on a Teams or a Zoom meeting, you want to make sure you're using it in a way that you can still access the meeting controls. When you go into presenter view, I've got presenter view set up, and I say I want to go to presenter view from my current slide here. What you'll notice it does is it opened it full screen. Now I can't see the meeting controls. So to get back to seeing the meeting controls, what I can do is I can go to the top right corner here and take it out of full screen mode. When I click on the Restore Down button, it allows me to now resize the window. Be careful you don't close the presenter view window. So now I can resize the presenter view window. It's much better. Now I get to see my presenter view as well as all my meeting controls. And now I can explore the meeting controls. I can share my screen. I can use the chat, whatever I need to do. So always make sure that you after you get into presenter view, you get it out of full screen mode so you can have better control in presenting on Teams or Zoom. In presenter view, there are three sections. The first is the current slide that your audience is seeing. Then we have the next build or slide. And then we have the notes that you have for this particular slide, your speaking notes. Now PowerPoint is going to arrange them in a default sizing, but you can make this fit what you need. So sometimes what people like to do is to make the current slide maybe not quite as big. You can use the vertical divider to do that, to adjust that. The horizontal divider you can use to adjust how much space you have for your notes and how much space you have for the next build or slide. Some people get distracted by the next build or slide, so they want to make it very small. It's up to you. So adjust presenter view using the vertical or horizontal adjustments so that it fits what you want it to look like for your presentation style. Within the speaking notes section in presenter view, you can adjust how big the text is to make sure that you can read it. If it's too small, just use the font adjustment tools down at the bottom to make the text larger or smaller. When you make it larger, it's much easier to see. You're going to want to test with the slide that has the most speaking notes, the maximum amount of text in the speaking notes section. Because if there is too much text to fit in the area that you've left for the notes, it will put a scroll bar on the right-hand side. And then you'll have to scroll down to see the notes. Sometimes that's inevitable. But if possible, set the font size so that you can read it, but that you don't have to scroll the notes. You can also adjust this horizontal divider to give yourself a little more space for the notes if you want to. In Presenter View, one of the great tools is the thumbnail view. It's this icon here and it says See All Slides. When you click on it, you see all of your slides in thumbnails. If you have organized your slides into sections, you will see sections listed here on the left. The vertical divider allows you to see more of the section title or less depending on how long each of the section titles is. You can scroll through your slides to see all of the thumbnails. You can adjust the size of the thumbnails by using the slider, the zoom slider here at the bottom to make the thumbnails bigger or smaller. Or you can hold the control key down and use the mouse button or the mouse scroll wheel to adjust the size that way. What the thumbnail view allows you to do is to jump to any slide by simply clicking on the slide. So if I wanted to jump ahead to slide 6, I could just click on it and it will jump directly there. This is a great way to be able to jump to different spots in your presentation when somebody maybe asks a question or you decide your time is running out and you need to jump ahead. In thumbnail view, I'll go back in. In thumbnail view, if you don't want to change what slide you're on, you can just simply click on the back arrow here in the top left to go back to where you were and continue your presentation there. So use the thumbnail view button, the See All Slides, in order to access thumbnails of all the slides in your presentation and jump to any slide that you want. Presenter View offers you the same shortcut keys to access the drawing tools that you have in slideshow mode. Control L changes the cursor to a laser pointer. I don't have to click my mouse button, but now whenever I move the cursor, I am using a laser pointer. To get out of any of the tool modes, you just simply press the escape key. The other modes we can use, Control P turns on the pen, and now I can draw using my left mouse button. I can draw on the slide. Again, escape exits. The next mode we can use, Control I, turns it into the highlighter. So the highlighter allows me to highlight certain text on the slide if I want to. Again, escape gets me out of that mode. Notice that in the tools area, this is where you can access all of the options for these tools, changing ink color, and you can also access the eraser. The eraser can also be accessed by just pressing the E key, and it erases whatever ink you have put onto the slide. Both highlighting as well as the drawing are now removed from the slide. So you still have access to the tools through the menu or those shortcut keys that you want to remember, so you can use the drawing tools in Presenter View. And whatever you draw on the current slide area here in Presenter View is exactly what your audience is going to see. When you want to interact with the current slide to either draw on it or access a hyperlink, do it in the current slide section of Presenter View, not on the slideshow screen. It makes it much easier for your audience because the cursor on the current slide area is not seen by the audience. This particular slide has a slide zoom to access the backup details behind this graph. So if somebody asked about that question and I wanted to show that backup slide, I can simply move my cursor to the link, click on it, and now it will zoom to all of that backup detail. Once I'm finished I can simply click on either the Return to the Zoom Slide button here in Presenter View that has now appeared, or just press the up arrow on my keyboard and it returns. So interact with your slides in the current slide area of Presenter View because it gives a much cleaner appearance to your audience. The attendees in the meeting don't see your cursor on the current slide area, but it allows you to interact with the slide just as you would on the slideshow screen. In Presenter View, the Magnifying or Zoom tool is a great tool to use when you have a complex visual and you want to move your audience through it. To use it, click on the Magnifying tool and then position your highlighted area here where you want it to be. The audience doesn't see the zoom until you click your mouse button. Then you zoom in. Now you notice your cursor changes to a hand cursor. This allows you with your mouse button to grab the slide and move it within this visible window. So now I can move it, explaining each step of this decision tree one by one. And this is exactly what the audience is seeing. So they saw the overview, and then they see as I move through the slide, all using the magnifying tool in Presenter View. To go back to the original size, just press the Escape key on your keyboard. This is also something you can do with diagrams and with graphs. If you wanted to go through a long graph here and look at each section, I can click on the magnifying tool, highlight the first part of the timeline, zoom in, I can explain this timeline, move a little further along, explain this timeline, and move to the end and explain the rest of the timeline. When I'm done, I just press Escape. So use the magnifying tool to be able to zoom in on a section of the slide to explain it to your audience, and you can do this either planned or in response to a question that somebody asks. In Presenter View, PowerPoint shows you both the current time as well as the elapsed time since you started Presenter View. This is helpful in two ways. First of all, if you know you have to finish your presentation by a certain time, the current time shown in your current time zone based on the time of your computer is shown right here. So if you have to finish by a certain time, you will know what time it is right above the current slide. If you know you have a certain amount of time for your presentation, this timer will help you. You can either pause it, or what you can do is restart it. Now typically on an online meeting, you have put your presentation into Presenter View before you actually start, because there's some introductory remarks before you start presenting. So what you might want to do, just to make sure your timing is accurate, is to reset the timer. The little reset button here allows you to click, and then it restarts the timer back at 0. So if you click on that right before you start delivering your presentation, then you will know the time shown in Presenter View will be accurate, and you'll be able to finish within the time allotted for your presentation. By default, PowerPoint and in Presenter View will use an option called Keep Slides Updated. In the regular PowerPoint view, the checkbox is there on the slideshow ribbon, but you can access it and see it in Presenter View as well. In the More Options, there's the option for Keep Slides Updated. What this does is that it will update the slide that you are showing in Presenter View with whatever changes are made in Editing View. So one of the advantages to keeping Presenter View in a windowed mode and not full screen is that it allows you to access the same presentation that is still in editing mode in behind. And any changes you make on the slides in editing mode are reflected right away in your presentation. So on this particular slide, if I was to add, let's say, a text box, and I can add a text box here to add a note, you will notice that as I'm typing, the slide in Presenter View and the slide that's being shown to the audience is updated at the same time. So this is a great way to either add content to the current slide, or if, say, you have a slide at the end that has action steps or items to follow up on, During the presentation, you can be adding those in to the editing mode. And at the end of the presentation, when you display that slide, it has a current updated list that everybody can approve and act on. Another way to use this updating is actually with charts. So if I move to the slide here that I have a chart, and I have a lot of different scenarios shown here. And in editing mode, this is the slide. And in editing mode, what I can do is I can use the chart filter skittle to decide which of the particular scenarios I want to show at this particular time. So if somebody wants to focus on just one of the scenarios or two of the scenarios, in editing mode, I can select this particular chart. I can go to the chart filters skittle. And when I select it, what it does is it allows me to now choose which data series are shown in the slide by just simply using my selection. So if I don't want all of them, and I only want scenarios 2 and 4, when I click apply, it will show only those two in the chart. And in presenter view, as you can see, it's now only showing those two scenarios to the audience. So we can adjust charts on the fly as we're having a discussion with our audience. And then if we want to change it, there's some more discussion. We go back to our chart filters. Now we want to select all of them, for example. We can select all, and as soon as we click apply, it updates the chart and it updates what is being shown in presenter view. So by using the Keep Slides Updated feature in PowerPoint, it allows you to edit the slides while you are presenting them by using the editing window of PowerPoint that is open with this presentation. It's another advantage to using presenter view not in full screen mode, but in windowed mode. In the top left corner of presenter view, there's a button here called Show Taskbar. What that allows you to do is if you are running presenter view in full screen mode, it shows the Windows taskbar when you click that button. This allows you to access other programs, including the meeting platform controls, by simply clicking on them in the taskbar. If the taskbar does not go away because when you close or minimize a particular application, you can click on that button to hide the taskbar as well. Now just remember that any application will open on the screen it was last open. And that includes opening on the screen where your slideshow is. So if you're going to open another application, make sure before you ever start presenter view, you've moved those applications onto your primary screen where presenter view is going to be, and they're not going to open on the screen that you're sharing with the audience, because otherwise they will see that application when it opens, and you may not want that. So use that Show Taskbar button in the top left-hand corner here if you're running presenter view in full screen mode. So let's summarize our expert tips for using presenter view. First, select the screen for the slideshow that you want to use. Don't let PowerPoint use its default. Second, understand how your screen resolution is going to impact the attendee experience. Choose a lower resolution screen. Use the presenter view in a windowed mode, not full screen, so that you can have access to the meeting platform controls. Adjust the sections of the presenter view so that they fit what's going to work best for you. Make your notes easier to read by increasing the font so that you can read them when you're actually delivering your presentation. Use the thumbnail view to allow yourself to jump to any slide during the presentation at any time. Use the shortcut keys for the drawing tool, such as the laser, the pen, or the highlighter, so that you can interact with the slide during the presentation, and interact with the slide in presenter view, not in slideshow view, including clicking on links to backup slides. Use the magnifying glass to zoom in on slides while you're presenting to be able to help your audience see the details in certain complex visuals. Use the current time and restart timer on presenter view to keep yourself on track and make sure your presentation finishes on time. Use the ability to edit the slides in editing mode while you're presenting so that you can create new content during the presentation. And finally, if you are using Presenter View in full screen mode, then use the Show Taskbar button to be able to access those meeting controls or other programs as needed. If you found this video helpful, there are 3 things you can do to help me out. First, click the like button below the video on YouTube. Second, leave a comment with any questions or feedback. And third, subscribe to my channel. Check out my websites and other videos with more tips and advice. Thanks again for watching.